The myth of the Zo-La-Hawa, the Gojira that went mad, may have actually belonged to Godzilla himself, and there is evidence in the Godzilla x Kong novelization that there is no Space Godzilla lurking in the Hollow Earth, and that Godzilla is the titan that went mad. For years, the myth of the Zo-La-Hawa was an iwi legend that plagued generations. The story was told of a mighty Gojira who was once amicable with the Hollow Earth, and shared his time between the surface and the caverns below. For a while, this Gojira was benevolent and docile, until the fateful day when he ate a star and was driven wicked by its power. So today, Heralds of the Titans, let's talk about the idea that this may have actually been Godzilla that we know and love, and not a Gojira brethren. The theory in question is rooted in the scene where Dr. Andrews and her team are led into an iwi cavern, which is lined with ancient scripts from previous generations. She explores the cave, deciphering the text and telling the tale of an ancient rivalry between the Scar King and Godzilla. According to the story, the surface world and the Hollow Earth once lived in peace and harmony, with the Titans protecting nature and the great apes guarding humanity, until a great evil threatened the balance of power. She is of course referring to the Scar King, but the way she described him is interesting. Specifically, Dr. Andrews' quotes goes, "A powerful and a ruthless ape, desperate to conquer the surface world, corrupted his tribe and led them into war against the one they called the monster who ate a star." After this, Trapper directly asks if this is referring to Godzilla, which Dr. Andrews nods, indicating that we may have had an ancient iwi myth wrong, and that Godzilla is the individual that ate the star. Originally, we believed that this myth referred to a potential MonsterVerse adaptation of Spacegodzilla, who may have had his origins altered in order to more closely fit into the myth of the crystalline nature of the Hollow Earth rather than the depths of space. But then, would this mean for Godzilla that he was in fact evil in his past if he was actually the one that ate the star? And if it was truly Godzilla who was driven wicked, as the story of the Zo-La-Hawa has claimed? First, it's important to examine exactly what the phrase eating a star means. It's an iwi expression for any time that a titan, and specifically a Gojira, absorbs a massive amount of radiation. Anytime Godzilla siphons a power plant, or when he kills Tiamat for example, could be referred to instances of him eating a star. But what's important to note is that none of these times drove Godzilla insane as the story claims. It would imply though that Godzilla has a dark streak in the distant past where he was in fact the villain, and was much more violent than he is now. It also implies that whatever power source drove Godzilla mad also gave him access to a new array of different abilities, or even a different form entirely. We know this because the cave paintings seem to depict the Zo-La-Hawa as having wings, which could infer that Godzilla at one point was able to fly. Originally, we believed that this was an artistic rendering of the crystalline formations that protrude from Spacegodzilla's back. It might not be actually viable wings, but instead, just augmentations that the natives believed resembled wings in the paintings. This jump in power could also explain why Godzilla is the last of his kind, as this would make him much more powerful than any Gojira, and implies a tragic backstory behind how he remained the last of his people. We know that several factors contributed to the downfall of the Gojira, and a combination of the war against the great apes, a changing environment, and an inability to adapt were the main driving forces of the Gojira's downfall. But before this war, we know that the Gojira and the great apes had to unite against a common threat which caused them to fight together for the very first time. If this entity and this threat that made them combine was Godzilla himself, then he may be in part responsible for the eradication of his own people. And this theory fits nicely into what we already know about the Scar King. We propose that the general timeline under this theory goes something like this. Godzilla was once content to roam the Hollow Earth, as many of his fellow Gojira have also been. At some point he was exposed to a new source of energy, which likely originated within the bellows of the Hollow Earth. But something about this source of power caused Godzilla to lose control of his mental faculties. He became much more violent, much more bloodlusted, and caused the very carnage that he sought to avoid. This led to the remainder of the Gojira and the great apes taking up arms against Godzilla in order to subdue him. And this army of great apes likely included a young Scar King. According to the legend of the Zo-La-Hawa, he was exiled into the depths of the Hollow Earth, and after this, the great apes and the Gojira began to see their own conflict with one another. After the facing down of this unconfirmed threat, we know that the great apes took a great interest in a Gojira's ability to absorb and utilize energy, specifically by using their dorsal plates in order to charge their atomic breath. The apes wanted the dorsal fins for themselves, and tensions rose up until one ape eventually killed a Gojira and ignited a war that nearly eradicated both sides. We do have another theory that we recommend you check out, which suggests that it was actually the Scar King who delivered the first killing blow. The general idea of this one though is that his fascination with this energy absorption is how he crafted a crystal capable of controlling Shimo and gaining the respect of his faction. But for a full breakdown of that idea, be sure to check out that video as well. If this theory though is true, then it's possible that Godzilla wasn't actually present for most of this war, as he was escaping his exile and seeking to heal his mind. In some way, Godzilla was able to expend his excess energy and return to his normal form, mental capacity intact, but the damage was already done. After the Gojira were all but dead, and the Scar King and his uprising were finally ready to take to the surface, and were about to win because they believed all the Gojira had died out, Godzilla would arrive, and this would see the return of our Godzilla, the monster who ate a star and was driven wicked. If the Iwi would have recognized Godzilla from the stories, when the Scar King was ambushed, Godzilla was able to banish him in return, and rose as the Alpha Titan since no more Gojira remained. Godzilla's family would have been eradicated, and he may hold part of the blame if the Iwi were able to accurately identify him as the Zo-La-Hawa, the Gojira that went mad. This also means that whatever power source corrupted Godzilla in the first place is still out there, and stands the chance of corrupting either Godzilla or another Titan down the line. It would also give Godzilla a tremendous sense of guilt over his actions, which likely resulted in several direct deaths, as well as indirect genocide. And it could mean that the version of Spacegodzilla, if he ever returns, is our very own, with the biggest mystery being his wings. What this may mean though, is nullifying the potential that an active Spacegodzilla iteration is somewhere deep within the Hollow Earth, living in exile and awaiting the day when he can finally resurface against Godzilla proper. Either way though, it does seem as if the stage is being set for some sort of Spacegodzilla iteration, even if he isn't currently in exile. The idea is that it was actually Godzilla who ate the star. This is a fascinating theory that shows just how much of a dark streak that Godzilla truly has in him, and how Godzilla has a checkered past. And the novelization seems to confirm this, as again, they confirmed that it was Godzilla who went wicked. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this idea? Is the Zo-La-Hawa actually based on Godzilla's past? And is he responsible for the Gojira going extinct and the creation of Spacegodzilla? But now, my friends and Heralds of the Titans, what are your thoughts? Do you think that Godzilla is the one that went mad? And what do you think happened to his wings? As always, thank you so much for visiting the channel today. Atomic blast the subscribe button, and I hope you're having a great one.